This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. Welcome to the show.
This is American Real TV,
There's so much to talk to you about.
where everyone
You are a true inspiration.
has
We're all trying to do our part to change the world.
a story.
What's your mission? What do you want your legacy to be? You have such a great story. I cannot wait to share it. Welcome to the American Real family. I cannot wait to air this episode.
And now, here's your host, Roger Brooks.
Paul Gulbin is the founder and CEO of Cambridge Transformation Partners, which helps companies accelerate their AI transformation journey. Drawing from decades of hand-on experience, Paul helps global organizations discover fresh approaches to their work, make more intelligent decisions using data, and find the right balance between human talent and technology. Paul's new book, The AI Alchemist, will help you gain an understanding of AI and ways to apply high-impact AI opportunities into your business. It will also cultivate essential human skills that complement AI capabilities, empowering you to lead effective change management for smooth integration. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roger. Pleasure being here.
So look, your topic is very timely. It's always in the news right now. And I'm sure for your day to day, it's just, normal course of business. But for folks like me who, dabble in AI, and I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers, it's just such a timely topic. But I guess first question for you is why pick this topic for your book?
It's an interesting story, Roger. A couple of years ago, about this time in February of 2023, I was celebrating my 58th birthday. I just exited a digital healthcare analytics startup. And I'm sitting in the kitchen, laptop open, Shark Tank is on in the background, and I'm wondering, what am I going to do next? Mr. Wonderful or Kevin O'Leary was bloviating about AI and the next generation of applications on Shark Tank. So I decided to go into ChatGPT and use it for the first time. So I tried it. I wrote a prompt, and I wrote a prompt about having an interview or a conversation with Kevin O'Leary for a LinkedIn article. And the objective was around the interview to explore, how can an experienced or seasoned person like myself evolve with all this AI and this change and disruption that's happening right now in the world today? And I was just blown away and just was so impressed with the output of what ChatGPT was bringing back and forth. So I went through several iterations, and I got inspired by this fictitious conversation with Kevin O'Leary about how high touch skills, can't be replaced by it or replicated by algorithms. And in that conversation, he used an example of something like being an AI alchemist, those medieval chemists that could take lead and tin and turn it into silver and gold. And your data and systems need to be turned into business value and ROI. And I published the article on LinkedIn. It went viral and inspired me to go back to school at MIT. And while I was taking courses at MIT, I thought to myself, I had decades of technology experience. Why don't I start a business around this? And let me share with people my knowledge over the last 3 decades of technology revolution. So I wrote The AI Alchemist. And here I am a year later, and with a company, with a book, and having some outstanding clients and people that I work with every day.
That's awesome. What a great story. And I'd love to dive into the writing process a little bit. But before we do that, for those listeners, viewers who still are having a hard time putting their head around what is AI, can you help us break that down? Just so people understand if they've never opened up ChatGPT, like what is this AI, and why is everyone so intimidated or scared about it?
Roger, if you ask 10 people, what AI is, you'll get 10 different answers. So I understand there's a little confusion, but AI has been around for years. And to understand AI, I typically look at how AI has evolved over the last several decades. And if you think about it, it first started with robotics. This was back in the 60s. And robotics is all about teaching machines how to do repetitive tasks. Think about manufacturing or the automotive industry as the first phase of AI in assembly of line robots. Then we moved into applied or traditional AI in the 1990s. This was really about automation or augmenting of a process. AI specific tasks like fraud detection for a bank or customer service types of processes. And then it got deeper and involved into machine learning and started to emulate how human brains learn, sense, see, understand, and think about Amazon predicting your next purchase, or Netflix recommending your movie, or Facebook targeting you with ads, or Alexa and Siri answering your questions, or Tesla seeing and steering, accelerating, and braking for your overall call. So that applied AI was really happening back in the early 2000s up to about 2022 when generative AI came onto the scene. And that was with Sam Altman and ChatGPT. And really that brought this AI that has been being used for decades in a commercialized format out to the consumer. So it really creates contextual content based on historical data. And I call generative AI a calculator for words. It provides inspiration to create content, market, sell, service, translate, predict. And then it moves into more deep learning. So it memorizes or understandings of those patterns that how you've interacted with the data and technology. And those patterns bring learnings to you. So that's where we are today, is in this phase of generative AI. We're pivoting now to something called artificial generative intelligence, right? And this is being invested heavily with companies right now. And it's probably, some people say it's available now. Some people say it won't be ready for the next 20 years. The jury's still out. But that's really about matching or exceeding human intelligence with machines. Think about AI being very good right now at repetition, automation, generation of texts and outputs. But what's going to be coming out is in the future is more deeper points of view, deeper recommendations, and doing more things that humans are good at doing. But I think really, if you just wanted to summarize a definition, I love the definition that Dennis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, puts out there, and he says that AI is the science of making machines smarter. And I would add to that AI is the science of making machines smarter, but giving people new superhuman capabilities.
Great. Yeah, and that was very well said, and it helps me even put my mind around. This has been around for a long time, as you said, since the 60s, and but just from the standpoint of, again, everyday person who knows nothing about this industry, it's really logic and data, right? It's in working tools that are helping whatever, whether it's a prompt in Chat GPT, or whether it's, in the manufacturing world doing something more efficiently, right? It's that data behind it that is giving the inputs or the outputs to be more efficient.
Right. And that's correct. Think of it, I think we've all used Google, for example, to do basically a search and a lookup of information. And that information is presented back into a series of links, right? And then you've got to go in, link in, do your own research, summarize that content, take, omit content, and package it in a way that you could, use it in your job or in your life. What AI does for you is that next step. It comes in, it filters through all the different links. Based on your prompt, it provides the right recommendations, the right analytics and data, and the right context whether that's text, video, software code to you to start using as a person. That's where it helps you really quickly get to this new capability.
And what's your thoughts around AI replacing human, jobs, right? So, for example, our son's in school, he's a freshman in college, and he's taking finance and accounting, and the people he's talking to that come to the schools that are trying to recruit are saying, well, be very, take courses on AI, do as much as you can to learn it and use it. It's really not going to replace the jobs, at least in this industry, but those who really understand it and know how to use it will be able to accelerate within their position to provide, better outcomes for the organization. Does that sound right to you, or is it
It's
all over the board?
it's a great question, and actually, it's the number one question that I'm usually asked when I'm in front of a business leader or in front of an audience is, will I lose my job, or how's this going to impact me and my overall job? And if you just take a step back and look at this from an executive or your own personal growth perspective, there's disruption, right? It's a new technology. So disruption causes fear. There's fear of the unknown, and there's fear of change related to that. So what I typically see happening is the best business leaders out there are really not just looking at the technology and up your skills or go away for the 30 days and learn 30 applications. They're looking at, how do I blend this technology with people and processes? It's like a three-legged stool, and AI is really a foundational component. AI is going to displace jobs. There's no doubt about it, but it's also going to create new jobs and augment existing jobs as well too. So according to the World Economic Forum last year, they're predicting over the next 2 years, 97 million new jobs will be created in this whole AI industry. Analytics, data, user experience, different ways of working with content, all these new startups are going to be emerging and creating these new jobs. Existing jobs, if you think about our country in in the U.S., there's about 136 million employees in our United States right now. 80% of them, or about 100 million, are knowledge workers. So those are the people that do marketing, sales, HR, writers, service-based, financial professions, doctors, right? So 80% or 100 million of those people are going to be AI assisted over the next couple of years. So it's going to augment existing jobs and activity. So the key is to adopt and change to AI and understand how it works in your business processes and how it understands your people. And of course, there's an upskilling, and there's also a people and change component to that as well too. But it's interesting. I have a son too who just started in sales, and he was a COVID kid. He graduated in 2020, never went to an office, never really met a sales manager, never really got coaching. So, he started working with, like, how do I build a territory plan in my territory? Utilizing tools. Oh, I could basically get the name of companies. How could I generate a list? So he used AI as a way of doing a lot of analytics and getting detailed coaching to be successful in the software sales career.
Amazing.
And
That's
then,
awesome.
and I'll give myself an example. In my advisory services, I had to do something called a Monte Carlo financial analysis. It's a forecasting analysis where you take a year's worth of company product sales data, quoting and order data, and you basically do this Monte Carlo analysis, and it's a predictive analytic on how to predict what your revenue is going to be for the next year.
Hmm.
And back in the day when I was a young guy, your son's age, it probably would have taken a week with two people and an experienced manager to prepare this Monte Carlo analysis. I did it in 3 hours, basically. And I went through several iterations. And most of the time I spent was correcting the data and making sure it was correct, and then putting it through different scenarios to make sure the outcome was correct. I was just floored as to how easy it was. And so for an older knowledge worker like myself, or a seasoned knowledge worker like myself, I equate it to like baseball. Here we are, spring training in baseball, like a pitcher, right? So a pitcher comes into the major leagues, young pitcher, he's going 9 innings, throwing 100 miles an hour. And then as that pitcher ages out, he pitches less innings and he loses the speed on his fastball. Right now, as an experienced knowledge worker, I'm throwing 100 miles an hour and going 99 innings with my business right now, because AI is allowing me to be more productive.
Wow. Great analogy. So love to learn a little bit about the process, your process for writing the book. People are always interested, our listeners are, as far as how does someone make that happen, right? So can you give us a little insight? You started the business and you got this book done all in the first year, which is phenomenal. The book, by the way, became an Amazon bestseller, so congratulations. But tell us about that process and what was that like for you?
Well, the first thing that happens is, like, I came to the realization that I had knowledge and something I wanted to share, right? And secondly, from my own learning experience, I thought I could teach people, and I have wisdom and experience, methodologies and frameworks that I could pull together, and actually they apply to what's happening now in AI. So my writing experience was, how do I assemble this content into a logical format of a methodology of situation, and then complication, what people or businesses are struggling with, and then what's the solution? How do you go about doing that? So I took a standard consulting approach or methodology, and I applied that into writing a book. So I used different ways of going back and looking at different client scenarios where I've used analytics, data, AI in specific client engagements, and applied that to those three types of components. Then I've did research and interviews with people that were looking at future solutions. And then I looked at my personal point of view, my personal stories of how to tell a story around those three steps, and make it a little bit easier to understand. And then while doing it, my first iteration, Roger, it was getting a little bit too technical and a little bit consultantese, as they call it. It's like, how could I just overlay some practical advice or analogies that are a little bit different that people can relate to and understand? So that was my journey.
Yeah, so I guess similar to you talked about the prompt with Kevin O'Leary, you did the same thing with the book, right? You refined it and got it to a point where it was very consumable. What would you say? Two questions: who's your target market, and what can they expect to receive from your book?
Yeah, so I'm my target market are business leaders. Typically, I'm focusing on mid-market type of companies, companies that are 50 million to 500 million in revenue, more related to manufacturing, distribution, services, technology firms. And really what they could look at is, how do you apply AI? How do you approach it? And a lot of the approaches that are happening incorrectly today are people are chasing shiny new objects in technology. And what value I bring is I put an industrialized process to looking at AI figuring out what's right for my clients. How do you make it applicable to the business? Then how do you deploy and scale it in a way that drives ROI and really new capabilities in the organization?
Awesome. So if if I'm starting to use this in my business, how would it impact my strategy, right? Or or the digital transformation of the business?
Yeah. So there's really two different questions there. From a business strategy perspective, it's really looking at your business model, your products, your market, your channel, and your customers, and then going internal facing and external facing. Let's start with customers. So how can AI better help, or how can improve engagement with customers? How can I service them better? How can I market? How can I sell better with these tools? How can I do more and have a better customer experience? Um, Internally or operationally, how can I drive operational efficiency in my business? The way that I plan, the way that I make products or services or an output, the way that I move or distribute or sell or measure or account for my goods and services. What types of tools in those particular process areas could work with my overall business strategy? And then from an employee perspective is how can I help my employees become more productive? How can I do less administrative, non-value added work and more customer operational type of work that they love doing and take that administration and those tasks out of their day-to-day activities, automate those, and get them focused on the customer, get them focused on operations, get them focused on product development and management into the areas that drive productivity and innovation. On the digital side, it's really AI is the next generation of digital transformation. So digital transformation, pretty simple. It's web, mobile, social, and connected devices, Internet of Things that drive all these different touch points. And up to now, it was very expensive, hard to scale, combination of all these different digital components of web, mobile, social, and connected devices. With AI, we're really going to now get into great personalization, being able to predict, to learn, to recommend. AI is going to be that analyst or that intelligent agent that's going to be able to combine and condense, aggregate, augment, summarize, retrieve, transform that type of data and provide that back to me fast and in a way that's contextual, and I can actually start doing a lot of different insights and analytics with that data. So business, it's basically interactions with customer operations and employees, and the digital side, it's really data driven around taking those insights and AI patterns to make them useful.
So if this becomes a major competitive advantage for companies, how do you see it where two competitors are actually using it? Is it whoever could use it better, or because it's not going to look exactly the same, right? For each company, it's going to be how they define it, how they utilize it within their organization. But if two organizations are using AI to the fullest extent, where is the competitive advantage?
So that where it comes in is the human skills, right? So there's machine and AI skills, right? Everybody could have an experience, right? Or a customer experience. And think about trying to reboot your cable modem or your Wi-Fi, and then think about ordering something online, a product online. There could be multiple types of experiences. I think that the best companies that have similar business models or similar AI tools will have the best combination of human and AI interaction. So there'll be defined understanding of where humans do their job, where technology does their job, and then the people skills people that could provide compassion, persuasion, empathy in that process are going to be the winners and have the competitive advantage. I'll give you an example. So agents or chatbots right now. Sometimes you'll have an experience where you'll go through circular loops of just the same basic information and taking you to a lookup page to like read. Other times there's steps where they'll segment basically the question you're asking and get deeper into different types of interactions and conversations, thinking through it like would with empathy and a communication style that's emotive related to it. So it's easy to just put out a chatbot or agent and answer 10 frequently asked questions. And usually that does not provide competitive advantage, but it's still AI, right? But if you take it a step further and build it into your processes and into your people, remember people, process, and technology, that's where you'll get competitive advantage.
So how do you prepare people for AI?
Yeah, so what I usually work is when I work with clients, I really start talking a little bit more about taking a collaborative approach. Of course, there's upskilling and change management is the common answer, but it's really challenging team leaders or business leaders. How do you start a collaborative process between human and AI systems? How do you combine human and AI capabilities to achieve better results or tackle like challenges that were considered impossible? And that's really the exciting thing about AI, what's coming down the road. Think about healthcare and basically research and the ability to understand outcomes of clinical studies, just to make companies, more efficient. It's really looking at the art of the possible and then creative ideas. And then there's going to be a place for AI to do its job as well as for humans to do their job as well too. So there'll be new ways of looking at content opportunities in preparing your people. But it's a big step. It's a chapter in my book. I've got an ebook on it, and it's critical to a successful transformation of what I've learned over decades of doing this is not forgetting about people.
Yeah. Is there anything, any real life examples you might be able to give us what, you're observing out there where, hey, if this person used my method, maybe it would actually be a potentially better outcome?
Yeah, no, it's like I was on a Zoom the other day with a prospect, and we were going in over a request for quote. They wanted to deploy a chatbot to do customer service. They wanted to do an employee self-service agent, and then another use case or initiative related to it. So, we started looking at everything from a technology lens, what platform we were using, what applications. So we started talking a little bit like, well, who's going to fine tune this system once you start looking at it after 1, 2, 3 months in the overall data, right? It's like, well, we'll have IT do that. Like, well, do we have somebody that has data analytics and those types of skills on the team? No. It's like, all right, well, in deploying this, how are we going to deploy all these new platforms and applications when your current organization has skill sets in A and this requires skill sets in B, right? So basically the stomach starts churning, and then the meter or the cost meter starts going up related to it. So, what companies should be doing right now is looking at their overall AI strategy and road mapping, upskilling their employees, looking at different ways to apply innovation and this new technology in the organization. And then really starting looking at collaboration, not within their own internal company, but maybe with their business partners, with their customers, with their software vendors, and then starting to fine tune and build their data foundations for AI. But the people side, it's really about how do I make sure the company's ready for deployment, who's going to deploy it, and then who's going to be using this system, process by process, function by function.
How about organizations? I'm thinking large, organizations with legacy systems and, whether it's airlines or the government or whatever it may be, where how may they use AI when they're kind of stuck in some of the old ways that, they may not even, they're trying to uncover what they even have versus where they could go.
Right. Well, in my book, we talk about really the four stages of AI, taking it from methodology to execution. And that's really about setting the AI vision and strategy. The second is opportunity identification. The third is getting your initiatives prioritized, measured for ROI, and then road mapping them out. And the fourth, which really is just more of a foundational component, is around ethics and governance. And if you just take a step back and look at what's happening right now in the US government, we're probably going through, this is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, transformations in history happening right now. So, there's a vision and strategy out there. It's reduce size of our government and then look for efficiencies. We, get fraud out of the system, get waste out of the system. Pretty, good vision. They've got an approach, they've got a team, they have some type of approach in place, and they're identifying opportunities, right? But what we're not seeing and what needs to be brought forward is, all right, then what are these initiatives? Let's tee them up, let's prioritize them, let's measure them, let's basically get the goals and what we're going to achieve, short term and long term. And then let's incorporate ethics and governance. How do we continuously improve? How do we manage? So right now, we're not really hearing a lot about the AI road mapping or the ethics and governance. It's quickly opportunity. Hey, if we want to stop paying people Social Security over the age of 120, great, do that right away. But on the same token, there's other opportunities that need to be vetted out and turned into use cases, measured, and prioritized in a systematic approach.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So maybe we should get your book out to some folks in the U.S. government. So, but it sounds like they're on the right track, right? It's just there's some other steps that need to be done to
Right.
really.
Again, if you miss the other steps, it's hard to have a successful transformational outcome. And then the other thing is people. We talk, and I've seen a lot of this, and I've had success with AI all transformations, business and technology. I had transformations that I did not do well or did not go as well as I planned. And really, it comes down to people, and people adopt or adapt to change. And there's really four types of adoption. There's people that change right away or adopt right, like, hey, this is great, sign me up. People that change over the normal course of time. Let me think about it. Let me look at the data. Let me understand it. It takes a little time to get them there, but they eventually buy into that change. There's people that are late, for like, hey, I'm just going to push this off and I don't want to do it, but they eventually come around based on circumstance. And the fourth type is I'm not going to adopt a change whatsoever. Right. So in doing a deployment of AI, it's almost taking a step back and looking at the population and, all right, what type of people, what categories of people do I have? And then how do I work with people in each of these different buckets? Hey, the earlier adopters, let's get them on board. Let's help them to be change agents. Let's show their examples of how they deployed AI and change. Um, the people that are late adopters, let's get them upskilled in one program and show them the value of it. The people of normal course of time adoption, let's just give them the data. People that aren't going to adopt at all, maybe we have to portray a harder message of where the company is going and what our strategy and plan is. So there's never one size fits all related to people, is what I've learned. And the book talks a little bit about that.
Does anything worry you or concern you about this, about AI?
Yeah, there's really three big buckets. One is bias,
Hmm.
and bias is data that contains uneven or even untrue representations of what that data output is after it goes through specific AI, large language models or applications. So, that, you know, how do we address bias, and how do we know that those algorithms don't have bias in it, right? So how do you build trust in that system, and how does that AI system make sure there's no bias in it? The second is cybersecurity, um, theft, right? There's a lot of data. It basically now brings in another way for an outsider to penetrate an enterprise and perhaps either not only steal your data, but inject data. So it brings on a whole level of cyber security type of issues into play. And the third is really what I would say surveillance or loss of privacy, right? So the tools and the data sets, the storage and the CPU processing capacity are there to capture everybody's interaction on any website, any mobile device, any traffic light at any time, right? And there are governments doing that right now. Um, and so there's got to be policy related to privacy and bias that are probably going to have to come at a federal type of level, which we need to put basic guardrails and rules of engagement in place, not to, hinder innovation or try to provide oversight or control, but it's like a highway. You need, traffic lights, you need guardrails, you need stop signs, you need no passing type of lanes, and then drive your cars the way you want to drive your cars on the road related to it. But those aren't in place right now. So,
Yeah.
so those are my big concerns. But as a country and as a world society, we'll put those in place. We've done that in the past with changes in technology. We did that in telecommunications. We did that in other in industries, but I just hope we do it in a way that's smart and does not hinder innovation or growth.
Hmm. So where do you see this going, next, say, 3 to 5 years? And that's a short period of time, but it's still, I mean, there's still a lot of, I think, opportunity that's going to happen year over year.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think where we've been is this phase one of this generative AI. Now it's been commercialized. It's been about chips, infrastructure, foundational AI components like ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot. I think that we're going to move out of the experimental and kind of out of the training mode of AI, and we're going to move into phase two, which is really around business applications or applications that are transformative and could be deployed at scale, right? So there's the process of using models to make predictions or decisions that are really, really fact-based type, and actually work. across many different businesses, functions, organizations, teams. The data is actually working and real. So I think we're going to be moving to more of a ROI and value-based type of approach in this phase two of AI. The experimentation is over. It's time to see where AI drives value. I think you'll see a lot of consolidation. There's thousands of companies out there right now with AI tools and apps. Just like we had, you remember when we first got the Apple Store, there were just thousands of apps out there to be downloaded on your phone, and everybody had like 100 applications that they never used,
Right.
that were little pieces. We're going to see a consolidation, right, of a lot of these applications. So Microsoft, obviously, they've already invested in OpenAI, ChatGPT's large language model. Amazon's invested in the Claude. Those are two big, types of relationships that would become more integrated into their Amazon, Microsoft, and then to the Meta stack as well too. But you'll see a lot of these startup vendors start moving into the business applications like a Salesforce or a HubSpot or a Grammarly, right? Being components of all these different types of applications and consolidation over the next couple of years. I think you'll see AI agents. That's a big topic right now. So, how do I use an agent really to help me do my job in ways that are more than just an alert? For example, AI agents today, let's just say I'm a manufacturing VP of operations, and the agent comes up on my desktop and says, hey, your raw materials for this part are low, right? It's almost like an alert.
Right.
Very common, but it's AI. It's looking at min-max levels of the product inventory. These intelligent agents will come back to the VP of Ops saying, hello, your min-max levels are low for this component. I would recommend titanium. I went out and did an RFQ for 5 vendors. These 3 have the lowest price. These 2 have the quality assurance and the ISO 9001 certifications that are required in order to do business for our end customer. And both have them, one has them in inventory and one has a 6-week lead time. And here's a request for quotation that I prepared for you. Please execute it and make your decision on if you want to order the product or not.
Yeah, I could see it. It's exciting.
Yeah. Or the other thing is, like, a buddy of mine is a CFO. So he interacts with Alexa quite a bit. And from a business perspective, he could be talking to Alexa saying, hey, I'm doing this quarterly forecast. Oh, I can't handle it. So basically, Alexa could look at the emotive and said, like, all right, I went through, I redid and consolidated your 3 systems into a consolidated spreadsheet presentation. Here are the numbers. Here are the specific gaps of where we did not meet our EBITDA targets. Here's what business units did well. Like, is there anything that I could help you with? So it's going to come into a more proactive type of recommendation to help that CFO, do that value added analytics and make decisions.
Yeah. No, like you said from the beginning, and you may have quoted someone, like it's going to make people better. It's going to make people smarter.
Yeah, it's superhuman capability, but what AI doesn't have, and this is where the whole human, creativity, they can do creative slides and output based on context, but real creativity and ideation, you look at compassion, persuasion, empathy, communication style. Could be communication, but what's the style that you communicate in order to get buy-in or bringing up the concepts of emotional intelligence and critical decision making and values and ethics. That's something that humans still have and they still will have for the time being. And it's really applying that wisdom. And that's what the AI Alchemist is all about. It's that wisdom to think through all these different types of ways of, it's fresh, it's relevant, it's contemporary ways of working with AI and humans so you can apply in business and you could manage all this disruption and shiny new objects and individuals and people could start reshaping their careers and upping their capabilities and skills.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a fascinating topic. I'm really happy we were able to spend some time on it today. Welcome to the American Real family. Paul, if people want to reach out to you, if they're interested in your services, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, so just go to my website. It's www.cambridgetransform.com, cambridgetransform, one word.com. And you can learn more about the company and you could drop me a note and we'll talk a little bit more about AI.
Excellent. And congratulations on your book. Paul, thank you so much for sharing all of your information with us today about the topic of AI.
Great. My pleasure, Roger.
Thank you for tuning in to American Real. For more stories like this one, be sure to stop by AmericanReal.tv. Follow us on all social media to stay up to date with everything American Real. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and contact one of our publishing experts if you're ready to publish your book and become a best-selling author.